Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alicia, this is Mocking Ariana 3. I've randomly had a urge to film a video. The last time I had this kind of burst of creativity, I knew that I wanted to start Guess the Reference up again. And I've had about 3 videos in my documents saved as video ideas that I just have never filmed. And I've realised I probably need to film them quite soon, otherwise they'll be out of date, if you get what I mean. So today, I'm finally getting around to telling you my rankings of season 9 episodes of The Next Step. I've put them in order. And also, if you haven't been tuning into my series Guess the Reference, you should, because I interview and quiz members of the Next Step cast. I also involve you guys by sharing your videos that you've sent in. I get to share them with them. Season 9A, I think, did a great job of exploring the new characters' personalities. Someone pointed out in my comment section once before that the male characters seem to be the ones that would be more emotional this season, and the female characters seem to be more of the comedic ones. Season 8, I criticised for being a bit too reliant on the previous A troupe and not lending enough to the new bees that were going to one day take over the show. But this season doesn't have the ability to do that because A troupe's gone already, and we've only got a few members that have been on the old A troupe that carry through to season 9. So I was very excited to see how they were going to go about the season. I remember before season 9 started, the main concern from a lot of us was that it seemed to be a recycled plot of how Grace wanted to take down the next step. It reminded us all of Amanda in season 2 when she wanted to take down the next step, so she was a double agent. I feel like season 9 did a really good job of making it different. Grace stands on her own as a villain, Amanda stands on her own as a villain, and they both went about it different ways, which I enjoyed. I didn't want it to just be a pure recycle, and actually Grace fooled me a few times, so it was effective. I do wish though that the Grace plot didn't end so happy. I would have liked it if she stayed evil till the end. I just think I would have respected her a lot more. Dance-wise, we had some great ones, I think, but the internationals dances definitely weren't up to my expectations of what I'd want from an internationals dance. It was a letdown for me. I'll get into that a little bit later, but it didn't really feel like internationals. And I'm taking out completely the venue as well because, like, budget aside, I still don't think the plot or the dance quality or just the overall vibe was the same. As the season wrapped, it did seem like there was a lot of plot holes that were open, not enough time to fill those plot holes in. And yeah, overall, I have given it a score, but I'll tell you the overall score at the end. I really wish I'd done this for season 8 because I'd like to see how it compares, but I did not. So if you would like to see me rank the episodes from season 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 maybe, let me know. I think I would enjoy doing it. I love this kind of thing. I'm going to take you to the episode that I have in 22nd place, and that's episode 18, and I've ranked this a 5 out of 10. So the lowest score we're going to is a 5 out of 10. I think that's really good. So episode 18 was called Split the Difference, and this was the episode where everyone was worried about becoming the alternates, and I definitely wanted it to be earlier in the plot, but I understand that if Ariana hadn't have been a manipulator, it probably would have been, so it's not a criticism. Alden was my main issue in this episode because I just think his guidance was completely misguided. And also Anthony didn't even watch dance auditions to work out who the alternate dancer should be, which is a bit of a red flag. But alternates has always been an issue for me because I just don't agree with the weakest dancer or weakest dancer being your alternate, because if someone isn't able to dance on stage, you don't want the weakest person to have to step in. You want someone who's quite strong. I've never really been a fan, but I tried to take that out of the equation and just be like, let's look at this. Did he choose the right alternate? No, I don't think he did. In this episode also, Alden hired Grace to be his assistant after they already apparently found out that Grace did some bad stuff. And you know, this episode is also after Alden tells the team how he's broke up with Talia and he feels lost. This episode was meant to be Alden rectifying his mistakes and being like, okay, I know where I stand now. But no, he continued to be awful at his job. Kenzie also returned in this episode, and I do think she should have returned a little bit earlier, not just one episode before International starts, because has she not got to prepare things? But I do feel like she outgrew the studio. Like when she came back, I was like, Kenzie, yay! But it didn't feel like we needed Kenzie to be there, which is kind of good because obviously if we wanted to write her out, it could happen. And she has been on the show a long time, but yeah, it made me think a little bit. Pascal was absent for this episode, and I do think it would have been good if she was the one to speak to Camille, seeing as she came with Kenzie, or they spoke together. Jet was trying to get her 540 in this episode, and I think it was a completely redundant plot. Sorry, Jet. We've already seen Jet's development, and the power trio just seemed like they were unnecessarily adding Jet to them. And I had comments saying that Jet already did a 540 in an earlier episode. I tried to find it, but I can't, so I don't know whether that is a fact or fiction. But if Jet has already done a 540 in that season, and that whole episode's plot was that Jet wants to do a 540, not great. But I didn't count it as a criticism because I don't know if it's true. But yeah, the Power 4 or Power Trio plus 1 that was created in this episode just didn't go on past this episode either, so it just seemed like a complete waste of my time watching it. They did have a scene at the party where they were kind of looking out for Adele, but that was it. There were other A-Troopers in this episode as well, but they were background characters. Background characters! I wanted to see people in rehearsals, but not in rehearsals doing nothing. Like, I just wanted somebody to speak. But Kenzie did volunteer herself to be alternate, which I did think she needed to do. The window cleaner is now cleaning my windows. But yeah, generally this episode was just a big waste to me, and my main issue was that Alden had his big reason for being out of character before this, but then continued to be out of character and just rubbish. So on the cliffhanger we had for season 9, how Michelle and Alden were going to own the studio. Michelle, own it. Alden, I don't want to see anywhere near the place. But yeah, that was my worst episode. So we're then on to episode 14, which I've ranked one higher at 6 out of 10. Now, I loved Anthony's solo in this episode, and that the whole team were there at the very start. It gave me very old school TNS vibes, but I found the whole idea and the execution of the complaint and the process for re-auditioning to be ridiculous. If you take out of the equation the fact that it was Alden and he did it for a reason, it still just felt like it would never happen, and that it wasn't an effective way to do that. The main reason this episode got such a low score for me though is because Pascal's secret was revealed in this episode, and it was just a letdown. It was completely underwhelming to me, and I wish it had been something more worthwhile. I didn't understand in this episode why Ariana didn't say explicitly about Grace and what she had done. I felt like I was just screaming at the screen saying, like, they're saying a whole lot of nothing. This episode did explain why Alden made the complaint though, and it made sense, but at the same time it didn't feel effective in a sense. I don't know. The episode I've put above this is also a 6 out of 10, so it's on level pegging with episode 14, and that's episode 13, Point of No Return. Grace tries to decide the alternates on Ariana's behalf as Pete makes a shock discovery. So this is when Pete learns that the letter was fake. The plot being to pick the alternates was a waste of time in my opinion, because it didn't even happen. So if they knew that it wasn't going to happen, I would have much rathered the plot be a continuation of episode 12 with the team reacting to being Heath kicked off, because no one really even seemed that concerned about that happening. I would have liked to see Heath doing a sad solo, typical of TNS style, and Nick also being involved, because Nick just doesn't have enough involvement in this season, full stop. Period. The dancers I also felt like could have decided to rehearse, seeing as they haven't yet, and we could have got started on one of the group routines because they know that they're going to suffer without Heath being on the team now. I also feel like Pete could have told Kenzie straight away about Heath being kicked off, because Heath and Kenzie were meant to be quite close, and also that would have planted the seed ready for when Kenzie learns about the letter, so it would have been a bit quicker. I felt like the Jet and the Niall plot was oddly placed and unnecessary. I really didn't like them doing the season 4 choreo. Personal opinion, sorry. The fact that Grace faked the letter was great though, and I really liked Ariana coming clean, but no one really reacted to it. They literally just stood there in silence. And I'm like, if you've just found out that she's faked the whole thing and that she's got Heath kicked off the team, I would be kicking off. And they just stood there in silence. It was so confusing. I would have liked it especially if Pascal or Izzy flipped out. Then one above that, I've put episode 15. So it's kind of this like small group of episodes that are all going together. And Anthony was put in a tough position when Ariana asks to be let back on the team. So for me, it felt like time was wasted seeing Ariana apologise, because obviously we know what she's done. We know who she's done it to, and we know whether it was fake or real. So we didn't really need to see them apologise. Ethan's solo in this episode was fantastic, and I loved the natural and real vibe that it had, but Piper's presence to me felt unnecessary, and it kills my soul to say this, but it just felt like she didn't need to be there. For example, how you have in a later episode Jet saying, oh my god, I can't do a 540 so I might get chosen to be the alternate. Piper had this struggle when she couldn't do an aerial. She didn't want to be chosen to be the alternate, so she could have had a chat with Jet. Just something that kind of links back a bit more and has her be more involved, even if she choreographed something. And also, she's meant to live in New York now. So why has she travelled all the way to Canada just to rent some studio space? It felt a bit unrealistic. I feel like the whole team should have voted on whether Ariana is allowed to come back onto the team, or the whole team should have been there when she did her solo, because the solo was insane, but it was only a select amount of people there. Was it just Anthony? I don't know, but the whole team wasn't there, so the whole team didn't have a say. The Dance Captain Diary explanation wasn't correct either, because Summer wasn't Dance Captain when Lily rejoined in season 7, and the Dance Captain Diary was still lost at that point.
Listen to this. Summer wrote this when Lily tried to join A Troop. When a dancer with a shady past wants to join A Troop, you can always let the dance decide.
One love, I won't forget it.
Lily's solo is really good, actually.
Congratulations, Summer. You're gonna be an amazing dance captain.
Thanks, Kenzie. I also feel like the Dance Captain Diary's just been like brought back now that we kind of all complained about not having it for ages, but then it's not been brought back and the rules have been kind of lost of who should have it and who should write in it and stuff. So I don't know. But yeah, overall, I just feel like Ariana was forgiven way too easy. Then we have episode 12, which I've given a 7 out of 10. Internationals is fast approaching, so the new dance captain faced a huge decision. The opening dance was okay for this episode because obviously it was the first one back after the mid-season break, but I preferred the one in episode 1. I found there was too much pressure on Ariana to choose who was being kicked off the team and not enough discussion amongst everybody. Why is it only up to Ariana to decide who should go home, waste all their money, lose their place, have to explain to their parents why they're not going to dance lessons anymore? Like, that's a lot on a child. Where's Nick? Adele and Anthony's scenes didn't hit it for me again, and I didn't think Alden and his goat were the best scenes either. It felt very odd, but the Alden and Izzy duet was fire. I loved it. Heath didn't react enough, in my opinion, to being kicked off the team. Heath, you've been on the team for like seasons, and you just didn't even gasp. The bow staff in the locker though was such a power move. I loved that. I loved how subtle it was. Another 7 out of 10 episode is episode 16, and episode 16 was just duet, the one straight after 15, obviously, numbers. Alden chose the Internationals duet and Kenzie considered a big opportunity. Even though Alden irritated the life out of me in this episode, the plot twist of him taking Anthony off his own duet, I did not see coming, and I did love it for that reason. However, I don't think Anthony and Adele had the best duet. I think it was Pete and Jet for me, so I didn't totally agree and I didn't think it was that realistic. And it also felt like they were just going for romance again, even though in this episode Alden said how it doesn't have to be romantic chemistry you have, you just have to get on with your partner and the audience have to be able to see it. Pete and Jet did that, but then they still chose the one that was romantic anyway, so it felt like a bit cringy to me. Jet, Pete and Kenzie's scenes were a little bit out of character for me, and I felt the scenes in France were unneeded. Also, going back to the duets, I didn't like how it wasn't open to everybody who could do a duet and how they already pre-picked people. Because what if Izzy wanted to do a duet, for example? Izzy and Heath. Imagine an Izzy and Heath duet. Oh. Also, for this episode, I wrote that Nick felt redundant. And unfortunately, I just don't think he's needed. And I think that's the direction they're going to go with if there is a season 10. And I think he has so much potential that's just not being used and they're just going for the easy option sometimes. Also, the way that I said Alden irritated me, I did mark the episode down for that, but then the points went back up because when Alden explained his behaviour in later episodes, it then made sense. So that's why it's a 7 out of 10. Then we have another 7 out of 10 episode, and that's episode 20. So Internationals began in this episode. It was Can We Do This? And Internationals began with a surprise performance, and A Troop faced an Internationals twist. So I loved how the studio was done up. It did make it feel very glitzy and exciting, and I was excited for Internationals. I always am. I love the competitions. But the challenge of having to include the exchange dancers in their small groups, I feel like shouldn't have been a last minute thing. I feel like it should have been said earlier, and it could have been as well, because I know that we always have Internationals twists, but I just think it could have been a thing that Pascal always had to be in their routine, Kenzie always had to be in France's routine, and then they could have even had that conflict of Pascal being like, oh, I really enjoy dancing at the next step, I don't want to go back to France, and Kenzie being like, I enjoy dancing in France, I'd like to step out on my own maybe, I don't have to be the next step, I've learned some independence. It just adds a bit to their characters too, and it doesn't have the unrealistic factor of, oh my god, we then had to find a costume that matches exactly for this dancer that's never been in our dance routines before. And also it makes sense for that to be what they're working on when they go abroad to a different country rather than just, you know, checking out the competition. Also, I just thought Kenzie could have got close to Remy by working on a small group with him, and then Ebby can get jealous, so when Kenzie comes back, Ebby can have kind of like conflict in the air and a bit of like, what's it called? Tension in the air with Kenzie, even though nothing happened, but you know, Ebby feels like Kenzie's got close to Remy and it should have been her that went to France instead. Miss Kate was back in this episode and named by her legal name, Miss Kate. Wonderful. Freya Sky also I love. I'm such a fan when she first did Junior Eurovision. Yeah. You're a wrecking ball in a house of cards. I stan. But it seemed so random. I don't know, I just didn't really get it. But more random than that was Rochelle's appearance, and I really disliked Rochelle being there. It felt weird because it's not even like Rochelle was on tour with Freya. She was just there, wasn't she? I don't know, because isn't Rochelle working on Step Inside? And also it felt like Briar was there, not Rochelle. And I really struggled to explain it at the time, but some people commented and said they felt the same. Like, it didn't feel like Rochelle came back at all. It felt like Briar Nolay was in the room. Thinking about it, maybe Freya could have been at the party instead. I know where I would have put Rochelle though, and that would have been as a support. So like how Presley supported Ariana, I would have liked Rochelle to support Izzy because Ozzy's absent or something, because, you know, Rochelle is Izzy's sister-in-law. Winnie wasn't maximised the way that she should have been, and Winnie always has these jobs in these episodes and it's never spoken about. Like, I remember in season 8, she was just working behind the scenes of Step Inside and it was never said why she's working behind the scenes of Step Inside or how she got that gig. Anthony changing the dance and the dancers in it was insane. But this is why I said it should have been that Pascal was always in the dance from the get-go, but I don't know why you changed like all the dancers and the dance style. Like, Pascal can do more than just ballet. The small group I felt was high quality for costumes, higher than the large group number anyway, but I didn't feel like it favoured everybody's style and I didn't think it was that good. But France's dance was great and I would have chose it to win over the next steps. The scene in Cha Cha's also was placed wrong for me, and I think they should have stayed in the Internationals vibe locations just to make it feel like it wasn't at the next step. It kind of ruined the illusion that, oh my god, we're at Internationals now because they just went to the cafe. Then we have another 7 out of 10 episode, and it was episode 22, the final episode of the season. So it's not the worst by any means. In the final round of Internationals, A-Troop faced their biggest challenge yet, and I really wanted a confrontation between Presley and Grace because Presley's very protective of Ariana. We always know that she stands up for what she believes in. She's not a diva, but she's opinionated for sure. Even hearing that Grace pretended to be Presley and tried to get into Ariana's head, I wanted an argument to be there. And Grace is doing all of this for Presley, so I just wanted there to be something. I wanted a bigger duet between Presley and Ariana because they're just so amazing, such amazing dancers. They're incredible, and it was just like they were kind of vibing instead. I think there was such potential. I really liked Ebby's personality again in this episode, but it was flagged by someone that this season would have been really nice to see her serious side and further it a bit more, because in season 8, she stood up for what she believed in doing an Afrofusion dance. She spoke about having a black dance captain, not feeling accepted all the time. And this season, she was kind of back to her childlike self, which is fine. I get it. Characters have range, people have range. But I think there was a lot of potential with like, oh my gosh, Ebby's very outspoken. And she was national soloist last season. And there was no qualms from her about not even being considered to be the soloist this season. I think there was a missed opportunity with the Maria Grace plot of changing TNS music to link back to the episode where they practiced doing this. So when they were auditioning for Dance Captain, effectively, Alden put on different types of music and they had to just dance to it, like, and not even react. I think it would have been miles better to actually have them play the wrong music, maybe not with all the swear words in, but have it be a completely different type of music. And they know that this is being broadcast live. They just have to go with it. They have to change the routine and just go off the beats. Maybe they improv something at the very last minute, like a really miraculous lift. I have wrote though that TNS's costumes were vile. I really did not like them. They felt low budget. I took off a whole point for this episode because of the costumes, because it just did not feel like Internationals to me. It felt like they were just doing a dance. For more than anything, it was the mismatched costumes. They weren't even all the same. Neither dances hit me as final routines though, and I felt like a lot of characters still had things that could have been wrapped up or addressed. Michelle and Eldon wanted to buy the studio was cute, but Michelle's whole plot of not wanting to do that in season 7 did make me double think whether it's actually a good plot or not. But she has made it as a professional dancer now, and that's what she wanted to do, so it would make sense if now she wants to settle and try a different route. So it's not a huge thing. Then, with a score of 7 out of 10, again, we then have episode 2, so we're right back at the start of the season. Episode 2 was 2-2 complete that game when Grace and Ariana start causing chaos within A Troop, which shakes the team's confidence. So Grace as a villain really started to grow on me in this episode, and I kept interpreting all of her actions wrong. Kenzie in this episode was studio head again, and I didn't like the blurred lines between it. And Niall and Ethan's scenes were nice, but I feel like there was too many of them and it went on for too long. I think if it would just be the first scene they had in the cafe, that would have been sufficient. But then how they kept it going to the second scene, it felt a bit immature and unrealistic. It felt odd to me that the team instantly turned on Anthony after Ariana said their flaws, because Anthony's not the kind of person to do that, and it felt like they just believed literally someone on a rival team for no reason, and there was no questioning of it either, so it felt odd and unrealistic there. But a contributing factor to this was that Anthony didn't even say, "Oh my god guys, I know what Ariana's done." Kenzie also just let it slide that Grace seemed to be scheming. She said that she knows she's scheming, but she's gonna let it happen or something. And their reason for auditioning wasn't right, because I remember Kenzie said that the team was broken right now. It wasn't broken. They just needed to fill the spots. They could have just said that. Then, slightly higher than a 7, on a 7.8, we've got episode 21. As a surprise guest changes everything for Ariana, Adele and Anthony dealt with a sabotage. The way that Olive, Ariana and Adele as a trio looked out for each other was really, really nice. Heath and Pascal fixed things, and also Anthony and Adele kissed. Presley and Ariana also bonded. It was just a feel-good episode, and I really liked it, I think. Ariana and Presley's secret sad hiding place, though, was weird, and it had never been seen before. The editing was also a factor in how believable these scenes were, though, for me, because it felt like a lot was ADR, and I don't know if it's just because I can tell, or if everybody can tell by now, but yeah, it just didn't feel believable because it wasn't being said right there and then. It was Heath and Pascal's scenes predominantly, I think.
I will give up the solo. I don't need my team's forgiveness anymore.
Don't do that.
The solos didn't have enough hype for me to be internationals winning solos. And I think because we only saw the 2 and neither really impressed me, that was the main contributing factor. I think Ariana's in particular, I really didn't like the flashbacks because Ariana is such a strong dancer. I wanted to see Ariana dance. I wrote that Eldon sucked at his job in this episode.
Are you both ready for tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I really liked Ebby's plot about leaking the choreo for this episode because it made sense and it came back round again. And her reactions were great in this episode as well. I think it was the highlight of the episode for me, actually, even though I really don't think Ebby should have been made the alternate. Being an alternate should never be a punishment, and I think they need to really change the mindset. If there is a season 10, I do not want any hatred on these alternates, or I want Michelle to be like, look, alternate is a privilege, because she's been an alternate herself. The end of the episode was a big letdown, though, because they just found out that, oh my god, we're in the final with France, the only team we've ever seen for this season, and that the team that has been their partner studio for the whole season as well. It was like, well, yeah, who else are you going to be in the final with? Just China all of a sudden, and we're going to get 12 new Chinese dancers? No. 8 out of 10. Episode 18. No, 19. Episode 19 was Dance Party. So this episode had the potential to be like number 10 out of 10 and number 1 for me. However, only half of the episode was actually at the party, and the party was the best bit for me. So Pascal was back in this episode. We hadn't seen her for a while, so I was very happy about that because I love Pascal. And I liked that she had some more interactions with Team France as well. But I still would have liked there to be a bigger moment for her. Yeah, generally, I just think everything that happened before the party could have been done at the party or just wasn't needed at all. And I would have liked Niall to be more involved at the party too. I think he's the only one that pretty much didn't have any lines or any kind of plot. But the lost and found songs, the outfits, the personalities, they were all lovely. And I love party episodes for the next step. Oh my god, I just remembered. Heath and Pascal wearing matching colours at the prom party thing and not having discussed it publicly beforehand, I loved. It was such a small little detail that I really liked. Maria returning was a big deal for me, even though it's questionable how realistic it is. But I think Maria as a character just isn't realistic at all, so it kind of works. Because it's like, whatever she does, you could kind of just say, oh, that's Maria. Then, still on an 8 out of 10, we have episode 7. And Ariana faced a difficult decision during the Internationals live stream challenge. She didn't know whether she was gonna do the slip up. But the episode had Ariana's solo, which was amazing and I loved. But I felt the editing was odd for this episode. There were black flashes, there were quick transitions. It felt rushed and it felt like they just needed to get this episode done and get this episode out because there was too much in it. The Internationals video where you have the kind of robot person on the screen, didn't like them. And I've said it in every single reaction where they appear basically. It just feels odd, fake. It makes the whole tone of the episode, I think, seem very unrealistic and cheapens Internationals, I think. I would have much preferred it be a letter or an email that's read out because it just didn't feel needed. I really liked Abby and Ethan both wanting to be chosen to go to France and being very aware of the situation and what it would involve. And it felt like lots was happening at the studio in this episode, so it kept my brain engaged. Izzy and Heath's friendship was also revived for this episode, which was great. Look at me smiling. I love them. And the live stream video itself, I felt like could have been better in my opinion by not having people sat on the benches in the background. If I was Kenzie or I was directing that video and I saw them sit themselves in the middle of the set, clear the set please. We're filming a video for Internationals. Get out the way. France's video didn't beat TNS for me and I would have preferred it if TNS won. I didn't like how the other team could just pick who they wanted off the team. I think that's been an issue beforehand though with, you know, rival studios, because didn't Gemini steal Alfie in season 4? Like, okay, just take somebody. You can't do that. And I don't think it really aided the plot having Kenzie go instead of like Abby or Ethan, other than we got to see how the next set would function without Kenzie on it. Then we have episode 10, which is also an 8 out of 10. That's called Beat the System. Eldon ran a chaotic group rehearsal and Izzy learnt an important leadership lesson. So I loved the comedic aspects of this episode. I think Pete carried, but even Jet showed a more comedic side to her character, which I really liked. The jokes in Niall, Olive and Izzy scenes though, didn't land, didn't like them. And I felt like those scenes in general just were so odd. That's a word I seem to be saying a lot. There's an odd vibe for season 9. Like there's just random things happening that don't really make sense. And I really don't think Izzy, Niall and Olive trio would have won Internationals. Like they're such different dancers and they're great in their own right, but not together. It seems like, you know, you can't just put random ingredients together and expect it to turn out well. I love that Eldon was helping to lead in this episode, but it made the previous episode's choreo a complete waste of time because they just changed who was in the small group completely. But I'm glad that everybody kind of spoke up if they wanted to be dance captain, rather than it just being decided. There were no routines set though in this episode, so it wasn't productive for me because like we did have a trio and a small group previous to this, but then Eldon scrapped them and changed the people in them, but then didn't even make those dances. So then on 8.2 out of 10, we have episode 11, Swing Vote, where Ariana comes to a realization during the Dance Captain Battle Royale. So this episode was great to have the whole A-Troop in, and also Nick and Eldon were there too, but none of the challenges really made sense to me, which let it down. They didn't show skills that you need as a dance captain. I felt like they showed skills you need to be an A-Trooper. Also, I'll say it, I think Anthony should have been dance captain because I just think he is so good. And he stepped up when Kenzie left. He was on the team last season. He choreographed the Nationals routine last season. He's just like, it's so obvious to me that Anthony should have been dance captain, but you know, plot. The episode felt very full and the cliffhanger was great because there wasn't an obvious solution.
There's 12 of us on A-Troop. Does this mean what I think it means?
It means we're going to have to cut a dancer.
And the episode proved to me that Eldon should be their choreographer, not their Internationals consultant. On a score of 8.3 out of 10. We're going up. We've got episode 6. And in episode 6, breakdown, A Troop prepared for the Internationals live stream challenge. This is when Jet was challenging the ideas. Ariana was putting ideas in Jet's head, trying to get Jet kicked off the team and stuff, you know. So I loved the rehearsal prep. It felt realistic. I liked how they were brainstorming things, and it was nice to see them actually rehearse. Lol. It was explained why not all the cast were there as well, which was good because Kenzie picked just these people. I don't agree with only having some cast members there and only picking certain people for certain things and then the rest of them just being at home or whatever. But I like when they say this because then I'm not thinking, oh my god, where are these characters? I also don't agree with who was chosen for the live stream dance. There are A-Troopers who are so much more camera ready than some of them. So like, I don't think I would have chosen Niall because he's new to the team, and I think the vibe of those dancers didn't quite match Niall. I think I would have put Ebby in it for sure. I think Izzy would have played to the camera really well as well. Yeah, I'm not sure they're the dancers I would have chosen, but sure, you chose them. You explained why no one else was there. I really liked Heath and Pete's plot, but I would have liked it to be more linked to internationals as to why they were dancing. So for example, Kenzie wants to see the boys do a duet ready to be picked, like out of the other duets and stuff. So they're working on that, not just, oh, Pete, do you want to just come and randomly dance with me? But I did like the emotion that was shown in the scenes. It was really, really nice, actually. I didn't like the Nick and Eldon plot very much. It felt unnecessary. Some people said that they did like it because it felt like old school TNS and very Eldon and very Nick. But I just feel like it could have been so much... There could have been actual weight to it. It was just a forgettable plot mentioned in one episode. And I hate that TV screen because it means that that robot person is on it. So... yeah, anything to do with the TV I don't like. But the emotion shown from literally everybody in this episode was amazing, especially Heath, Pete and Jet. I think Anthony should have had more of an inkling that Ariana was scheming though, because he's experienced her scheming before when she told the team all the flaws that Anthony had said. Then we have episode 17 coming in with an 8.4 out of 10. Episode 17 is called That's a Stretch, and in this episode Eldon fought Anthony over who should represent TNS in the home field advantage competition. So because they won the challenge, it meant that France had to come to them rather than them having to go to France. But I feel like it was never said from the offset, oh my god, we might have to go to France. Maybe they should have been preparing for that. Like when Ebby and Ethan were like, oh my god, I'd love to be the exchange dancer. If they knew that the possibility was that internationals would be in France, then I feel like they could have been more excited for that. And maybe they sabotage a dance because they're like, I really want to go to France. So if we just lose this one qualifier, we get to go. Something like that, like where they've got a moral dilemma. Ebby and Remy's plot about sharing choreo was something new, so I liked it because obviously we've had Riley and Ella, where Ella literally just stole Riley's choreo, but Ebby and Remy, she trusts him, and so I guess Riley did trust Ella as well, but it was a bit more subtle in how they did it, so I did like it. Eldon's plot finally having reasoning thanks to Michelle's influence was lovely. But I do hate that they broke up the one unproblematic couple, like Eldon and Talia, I miss you already. I loved Eldon's solo though, and the acting from Isaac at the end was amazing. Okay, 8.5 out of 10. We then have episode 5. So it's definitely the beginning half of the season was stronger to me than the second half of the season. Bad attitude. So I would have liked a proper opening dance or nothing at all because it just felt very oddly placed and the wrong mood, especially considering Daisy got kicked off the team and she was vital at nationals and then suddenly they're just dancing. Jet was still sad about Xander also, but no one was sad for Daisy, not even Izzy, Daisy's best friend, so to say. I did love though that Ebby and Izzy were hanging out because I think their personalities mesh very well, and I loved the care package idea of them sending something to the other studio, and this kind of filler I think aids the plot, so I don't hate it, like even though it doesn't necessarily have them practicing a dance or establishing a relationship, it adds to the fact that they have got to prep something and that they are going to compete against France and that France consider them rivals. They also said that they were Canadian in this episode, and I still remember my excitement of hearing that they were Canadian because I love it. Like, yes, preach that you're Canadian. I loved Heath having his suspicions about Grace, but he's forgotten them all after this episode. So yeah, this episode is really good for Heath being like, oh my god, there might be more to this than just, you know, Daisy lost her bow staff. But in the later episodes, he never even squares up to Ariana. He doesn't really square up to Grace. He just lets things happen around him. So that's also why season 9 kind of goes down for me after the first half, because it's like no one knows their alliances. Everyone forgets what's already happened, and yeah, plot holes. I didn't think Jet seemed the most sensible or like she had her head screwed on in this episode. She was manipulated way too easy, but some people are manipulated easy, so I didn't hate it. Grace's solo was amazing. I adored it. And this episode very much aided in character development and plot development, but it wasn't a standout one. It was just necessary for the plot to continue. So if I had to get rid of episodes, I'd keep this one. Okay, and then 8.5 out of 10 again, we have episode 3. I love audition episodes. You know me, I love an audition. So it wasn't obvious to me who was getting cut, even though I'd already seen the A Troop lineup. Daisy and Heath in this episode were great, and I loved the friendships shown between everybody, but it was too obvious who would make it from the talking heads. So if I hadn't seen the A-Trip lineup beforehand, I'd already know that like Adele and Olive make it, because they've had talking heads. You don't do talking heads if people are just going to be background actors. But this is an issue for every season. I liked seeing their history between them though, the new characters, and knowing kind of what we're getting ourselves in for if these people make the team. Nick and Eldon's presence bulked out the episode and made it feel organised, but I think Nick could have done a lot more, which is just like a recurring theme for season 9 and 8 pretty much. I didn't understand though how long they had to learn the combo, or what Eldon meant when he said Group 1 take the floor, because Group 1 didn't take the floor after he said that. They just kind of continued practicing. So I was a bit confused.
Cool. So, Group 1, you're on the floor.
If I want to make A Troop, I have to focus. That means right now, I really need to talk to Kenzie about what's on my mind.
Kenzie was also in the office again. Even though we've got a Nick and we've got an Eldon, Kenzie was still in the office. The editing of the auditions was a bit odd to me in regard to the slow motion usage. I don't think it aided the dancing in any way. And it's kind of like, I don't know, sound harsh, but it's like a non-dancer edited the dances, because they picked up on the moves that weren't that impressive, but then the ones that actually like would have looked good in slow motion weren't slowed down. Jet's emotion in this episode though was fantastic, and like, I loved it. It really showed Mila as a great actress as well as just a great dancer, and it felt like Jet as a whole character took a step up for this season. Anthony too. Anthony, a great emotion. So then we have episode 4. Auditions continue, and this episode got an 8.7 out of me. This one got an 8.7 for me, so it's slightly higher than the one before it. I love the twist and how Daisy's exit happened. I didn't expect it at all. I thought it'd just be like, you know, oh, Daisy doesn't dance well enough. But I kind of like that Daisy knew exactly who did it, but she didn't call them out because she understood that it was equally her fault because she didn't rise to the challenge. I felt like the tension through this episode and the emotion was fantastic overall. But saying that, I know I've just said about Daisy, but I do feel like she should have just told somebody as well. Like even just mentioned it to Nick. And I think Nick and Kenzie could have been more confused because they know Daisy. And they know Daisy just did the Nationals duet and won with it. Like, did they win? I think so. No, they tied with Ultra Elite. But they could have been like, Daisy never acts like this. Daisy's always super prepared, is an overthinker. Daisy would never just not have her prop. So yeah, I feel like they could have dived into it a bit more.
Let's go. I did not expect that from Daisy. Clearly, she was rattled by the challenge, but at internationals, you have to be prepared for any twist. And she wasn't.
It's a fair playing field. If you don't act the best in the audition, you don't get the role. I love the lost and found references throughout, and Adele and Anthony's scenes were weird to me, but I like that Adele opened up, and I feel like she touched on some important topics as well, especially including her arm and her limb difference and just, you know, representation as a whole. I felt like some people could have done better auditions. Izzy, for example, I don't think did that well. Ethan, for example, had gloves on. Gloves are not a prop, even though I did not say this in my reaction because I didn't think about it. Ethan could have done any dance just wearing gloves. So I feel like they really could have stepped up their game, and it was just kind of like, oh, you can stay on the team. Nick and Kenzie's scene was a bit odd to me. I didn't really like it. And I'm glad that Heath and Daisy only stayed as friends. They did not kiss. But yeah, there was no outrage to Daisy being cut. Like when Xander got cut, Jet was in floods of tears. Anthony was crying. Daisy gets cut, she walks out. I want audible gasps from people. Okay, and then we have episode 8 with a big score of 8.9 out of 10. And episode 8 was called Bridge the Gap. Ariana worked through her guilt while Kenzie dealt with a more important personal decision. 3rd place, guys. Pete and Kenzie, cute and supernatural. But I didn't know when Kenzie's flight was because it was at all different times of the day, which made it unrealistic and it did bother me. Kenzie and Pete's dance and kiss was so lovely though, and I felt like her scenes with Heath were spot on. I really loved them, and I love how it showed their growth and that they have both been developing as people over the years together. Abby was fabulous, and I love how she comes across on screen, same as Niall, but their plot together seemed a bit useless for me. Instead, my suggestion would be that they're both trying to get soloists, because obviously Abby was soloist last season. Maybe Niall's like, I'm going to go and talk to Abby because I want to be the soloist for internationals. They both try and perfect solos and stuff, just something a bit more relevant. I felt like Jet and Ariana's conversation escalated too quickly for me, and Jet should have just thought in the back of her head, Ariana's been a bit shifty, rather than saying it out loud. These things aren't major, and the episode was still good and entertaining for me. So yeah, an 8.9 and 3rd place. 2nd place. There's only 2 episodes to choose from, guys. It's either episode 1, the one that started the season, or episode 9. Guess now, which one do you think is going to be your 1st place? 2nd place is episode 1 with 8.1 out of 10. The opening episode for the season, friendly, exciting vibes from the get-go with how they welcomed us back. They looked out of the mirrors. I'm smiling thinking about it. It was so happy. But Kenzie's role really confused me. I don't know whether she was dance captain or studio head. She came out of the office. She was acting like a studio head, but then they were calling her dance captain, so I don't know. But it was a fab song as well to start the season off. Very energetic. Oh, are you ready for the bright lights? Where's the Volume 2 soundtrack, TNS? Can you upload that soon as you've found the password to YouTube? Can you find the password for Spotify as well? I liked the small references to the previous characters as well to nicely merge season 8 and season 9. There was very nice references throughout, and the vibes were immaculate. I loved. It was all very natural, not very over the top. And there was even a reference to Jackie. Jackie. Oh my God, I adored it. And Jude's journey was quick, but great. Like, I felt like it escalated really, really fast. Like, oh my God, Jude, you're going to be the choreographer. Oh my God, Jude, you're going to leave and join Step Inside instead. But to me, it felt realistic. So it wasn't a criticism. It felt like that's just how fast things have to happen sometimes. And she acted maturely and she got the job done. Winnie's presence was great as well. And the show felt bigger than just A Troop because we knew that B Troop were also doing things. I think they mentioned J Troop. Obviously, the Step Inside dancers were talking about Jackie and other things that they've got going on. So the show felt very big, and the universe of The Next Step felt bigger as well, which I really liked. There was lots of different characters that interacted with each other. Everyone seemed to be on the same wavelength. There were old TNS vibes in this episode with how they felt like teenagers as well. It was a very emotional episode also, but I didn't get the shoelaces reference with Daisy and Heath. And Cleo, I think, should have said that she wasn't going to sing the song. They've just got it on playback because she was kind of singing along, but it was evidently not live singing, and it made it feel a bit cringy to me. And I would just like them to dance together because, you know, they're cute. Pete's mystery mood was mature and intriguing. Nick's presence wasn't there though, and I would have really liked the opening dance to be filmed by Nick so that when they finish, it then cuts to like a wide shot and Nick puts the camera down and he's like, yes, we're back, guys. And then they're like watching it all back or something, just to tie it all together and make sense. And also it would link to later when they have to film a live stream video because they've already got somewhat experience, and it's just like a foreshadowing moment. So in top place is season 9, episode 9. Which was Off Balance, and in the absence of a dance captain, Nick was in charge and assigned a trio to Olive and Adele and Ariana. So straight away from that description, there's no Kenzie, Nick is doing his job, and I think that's what the season was missing a lot of the time, just like an adult in charge that's actually going to do the job properly. But the main first thing that I loved was Heath and Izzy's energy. It was on point for this episode. I really enjoyed it. It was like they remembered that they were friends. It was like they remembered their personalities as well. Nick was actually doing his job, but I would have liked it to be more confirmed what dances they actually need to make for the whole of internationals, not just this one episode, and actually started to define who was in each one. Because at this point, Nick was still saying maybe to like what dances they needed to do. Like, maybe we'll need a duet. Surely you should know by now. You've only got a few weeks. The sudden reveal that Pascal had a secret added an extra layer to her character and also to the season as a whole, because all the time I was then thinking, oh my god, what could this secret be? It was very underwhelming, but you know, at this point I thought it was great. I will say though, oh, so this was the episode where Pascal came actually, I remember. Her coming in with all of her suitcases I felt was a bit unrealistic, because surely she dropped them off at the hotel first. Like when I went to Canada, I didn't take all my suitcases to the studio where they film. I only took it on the last day because I was flying home immediately after being on set. Ethan and Ebby's personalities came through as well in this episode, and I really like seeing the growth from Ethan as he accepted not going for the solo this time and actually doing what's best for the team. I really loved the natural mention of periods as well, and I loved Olive's personality. It felt like the show was mature in this episode.
And Ariana, when you got your period right before regionals, who gave you her emergency tights so that you could go on?
You did.
I did. I want to help this team win internationals.
And it felt like it was teenagers talking to teenagers, not like teenagers acting like children. I enjoyed it. Adele, Ariana and Olive are a great dance trio, but I don't know when they rehearsed that little dance that they did, because the whole time that we saw their scenes, they were either arguing or just trying to think of things or just talking. So I don't know how big of a time skip there was before they showed the routine to Nick, but I really liked it. And one thing I really liked was that it felt like teenagers dancing together. It didn't feel like three professional dancers pretending to be teenagers. And when I watched this episode with my fiance, he actually said that it gave him season 1 vibes, that little dance that they did. Definitely for me, the first half of season 9 was stronger than the second half of season 9. Overall, I give the season a 7.6 out of 10. That is me working out literally the averages based on every episode. And I definitely think the main contributors to the downfall of the season, Alden and his erratic behaviour, Nick's absence, the feeling of things being very rushed, the execution of some scenes in both the technical department but also the way that it was directed, and the way that internationals was executed, because I think if internationals had been a bit better, it probably would be at least an 8 out of 10 for sure. Everyone, use the hashtag TNS10 when. We want a TNS10 soon, hopefully. I have seen the rumours as well. Someone commented on my video, how have you not commented on the fact that TNS10 is rumoured and that there's like proof on the internet? And I've just been busy. That's literally it. So I'm just like, yay. If it happens, it happens, which it probably will. But I've been talking to cast members as well, obviously when I do guess the reference, and I try and get it out of them, but no one's telling me anything. I want a TNS10 so bad. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. Let me know what your favourite episode was of the season. You might have to go back through the list of them and work out what it was. Maybe my recap will help you. I'm now going to go and edit this video and get clips from every single episode. And whenever I'm uploading this, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you watch Guess the Reference as well. It's my favourite season this season. Like, I think I've edited it so much cleaner. I think I filmed it so much cleaner. I'm just really proud of it. It's my favourite season yet. So yeah, I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support as always. I love you lots. Bye!